Hello everyone. Thank you all for watching the video and leaving meaningful comments. Wishing everyone good health and happiness.
The morning began with fresh air and gentle sunlight streaming through the small garden. I picked up a watering can and stepped into the garden to water the vegetables. The lush green vegetable beds, carefully tended, glistened in the morning light. I carefully watered each row, letting the water flow evenly into the soil, cooling the entire garden. The sound of trickling water blended with birdsong, creating a serene scene. While I was busy in the garden, James had left home early to head to the construction site. There, he observed workers at their tasks, checked progress, and made calls to management to remind them about workplace safety. James was always serious about his work, constantly pushing progress to ensure everything stayed on schedule. After finishing watering the vegetables, I returned home when my mother-in-law asked Tu Diep to go to the field and pick tomatoes. I decided to help with this task and brought along a large basket. Stepping into the field, I saw ripe red tomatoes hanging abundantly on the plants. I started picking them one by one, my hands working quickly yet carefully to avoid bruising the tomatoes. The open air in the field was refreshing, and the soft sunlight made everything feel pleasant. When the basket was full of tomatoes, I took them out to sell. Along the way, I stopped by each house to offer tomatoes for sale. Each time I sold a few, I felt happy knowing I could earn a little extra money from this work. The buyers all praised the tomatoes for their freshness and vibrant color. While I was busy selling tomatoes, James remained at the construction site. He stood near large machinery and discussed ways to improve efficiency with workers. He kept making calls to push management to ensure everything ran smoothly. By noon, I had sold all the tomatoes in my basket. On my way home, I felt relieved for completing my morning tasks. James's garden appeared before me with its simple yet peaceful beauty. I sat under a tree to rest and reminisced about past days when James and I were still together. Those memories made me feel lonely and sad. I decided to write a letter to James, informing him that I would return to live with Mr. Powell. The letter was placed neatly on the table in our small house. Then, I left with a heavy heart. When James returned home and read the letter I had left behind, his face showed clear disappointment and sadness. He sat silently in the empty room, his gaze distant as if lost in thought about something. On a quiet morning, while everyone was busy with their work, Mr. Powell was still sound asleep. In his dream, he saw images of me and James together, which caused him to wake up abruptly. His face showed a hint of anger, and his eyes revealed clear discomfort. After waking up, he didn't stay at home for long but quietly went to a friend's house in the village to distract himself. At his friend's house, Mr. Powell sat down at the table to drink wine. Under the influence of alcohol, he began talking about me, saying that I was a bad wife who couldn't bear children. His harsh words made the atmosphere tense. Some of his friends tried to advise him and remind him not to speak so harshly. However, the exchange of words became increasingly heated. The conversation turned into a major argument. Mr. Powell refused to back down and continued loudly criticizing me. One friend in the group, unable to keep calm, stood up and countered his remarks. The conflict escalated into a physical altercation. The sounds of shouting and scuffling echoed through the small house. Eventually, the brawl ended as everyone grew tired and returned to their own homes. Mr. Powell came back looking angry and exhausted after a tense morning. The atmosphere in the village seemed quieter and more subdued following the incident. That morning, I carried a basket of tomatoes and went door to door in the village to sell them. The ripe, freshly picked red tomatoes from the field delighted many people. I walked along the narrow paths, stopping at each gate to offer my goods. The friendly chatter and laughter of the villagers made the atmosphere feel warmer. Some complimented the freshness of the tomatoes, while others haggled over prices, but in the end, I managed to sell quite a lot. By late morning, my basket was completely empty. I felt relieved to have finished my work. On my way back, I passed by James's small garden. The little house nestled in the quiet garden looked just as it always had, but now it was only me left there. I sat down on the porch, gazing at the lush vegetable beds and reminiscing about the days when James and I lived here together. Memories came flooding back, weighing heavily on my heart. I recalled the afternoons when we watered the plants together, tended to the garden, and listened to James share his dreams of building a happy family. But now everything had changed. I was no longer the woman of this house. A sense of loneliness rose within me, and I couldn't hold back my tears. After sitting silently for a while, lost in thought, I decided to write a letter to James. In it, I informed him that I would return to live with Mr. Pow, a place where, though there was no happiness, it was my only choice at this moment. I placed the letter neatly on the wooden table in the small house. After leaving James's house, I returned to Mr. Pow's home with a heavy heart. As soon as I stepped inside, my mother-in-law inspected me and took all the money I had earned from selling tomatoes that morning. Not only did she take everything, but she also scolded me loudly. Mr. Pow joined in as well. He grew angry and slapped me several times before pushing me to the ground. The physical pain was nothing compared to the emotional pain of realizing that I had nowhere to turn for support. Thankfully, my father-in-law intervened just in time. He stepped in to stop Mr. Pow's actions and gently advised him not to treat me that way. While his words were softer than those of others, they did little to ease the tension in the household at that moment. That afternoon passed in heavy silence. I sat alone in a corner of the house, staring out at the dusty yard with a sorrowful heart. Images of James's lush green garden and his little house kept appearing in my mind like a beautiful dream that had vanished forever. That evening, James felt sorrowful and decided to go to a small bar in town for a beer. He sat alone, his gaze distant, sipping his drink slowly. The bar was lively, filled with laughter and chatter, but the noise around him did little to ease the sadness in his heart. After some time, a group of young women entered the bar and noticed James sitting by himself. One of them approached him and politely asked to join his table. Initially, James felt a bit awkward but maintained his polite demeanor. The women chatted cheerfully, trying to draw James into their conversation. However, he responded with brief remarks, his eyes still reflecting a contemplative mood. After a while, fatigue and the effects of alcohol prompted him to excuse himself and leave. As he stepped out of the bar, one of the women hurried after him and asked for his phone number, hoping for another chance to meet him. Reluctantly, James shared his number before getting into his car and driving home. Meanwhile, back at Mr. Pow's house, I had just finished dinner when Mr. Pow tried to force me to sleep with him. I refused and attempted to explain that such actions were wrong, but he wouldn't listen. Fortunately, the village chief arrived at the house for a visit at that moment. After hearing my account of the situation, the chief sternly explained to Mr. Pow that forcing me into such acts without legal marriage was against the law. He emphasized that coercion could be considered rape and carry a prison sentence of up to 20 years. The village chief's words left Mr. Pow speechless. He turned away with a mix of embarrassment and anger on his face. After the chief left, tension in the house escalated further. I sat curled up in a corner of the room, feeling helpless and frightened. My father-in-law spent a long time sitting at the table drinking tea, staring into the distance as if lost in thought. He didn't say much but occasionally let out heavy sighs. The house gradually sank into the cold darkness of night, with the sound of wind whistling through cracks in the door adding to its somber atmosphere. On the other side of town, James had returned home but remained weighed down by the letter I had left for him earlier. He sat in his small room under dim yellow light, his face filled with emotion as he stared blankly ahead. Memories of our time together flooded back as he wondered whether things could ever change. That night passed in oppressive silence at both places, James's quiet home and Mr. Pow's tense household, each person carrying their own burdens of conflict and sorrow in an endless cycle of pain.